What's happening, food fans? Foodmaster Shane D here, and today it's all about knives. It's going to be a long, bumpy ride, so take a second, go grab some coffee, go grab a soda, whatever it is you need to make you happy, maybe some popcorn, I don't know. Go grab that stuff, come on back, I'm going to get the camera set up, and we're going to dive into one of the most heavily debated topics in all of the culinary world. What makes a good knife? Go grab that stuff. I'll see you back here. Alright guys, so we're back. I hope you got your snacks and you got your notepad and you're ready to take some notes. I've set up a few different cameras. We're going to try to get a few different angles. And I want you to be able to get in here and see what it's all about with these knives. So, what makes a good knife to me? Let's just start there, right? I can't always tell you what's going to make a good knife for you, but I can tell you what I like in a knife, okay? I like a knife that's not too expensive. Let's start there. It's not too cheap because I don't want to resharpen it all the time, and I need something that's going to last long. It has a lot of longevity in it. I like something that's pretty. I can't help it. You know, we like things that are attractive to us. So what makes a good knife to me? It's something that has all those elements, okay? You can have a great working knife. Great example. You reach over here. We'll get some of these laid out here. So what would be the definition of a working knife? This is a perfect example. This is a Victorinox fillet knife or deboning knife, boning knife. It's got a really good, comfortable handle, easy grip. It's never going to slip. This is a great working knife, okay? 100%. You could use this for your main knives in the house, and there would not be one thing wrong with it. But what's the difference between a working knife and, a $200 Miyabi, right? It's the Miyabi, better steel, better handle, and a lot more decoration. That's it, okay? Now, this is a big jump from like $25-$30 up to a couple $100, okay? Not everyone's going to do this. I totally don't blame you, okay? This is one of my first, real chefy knives. I was like, I gotta get a Miyabi, and I've had a couple Shuns, and they're great too. It's all preference though. A good knife is one that feels good in your bare paw, okay? Number one, if you can't work with it for a long time, pass. It doesn't matter how pretty it is. So if you're a guy like me that has to work with a knife in his hand sometimes for hours at a time, that matters. I'll tell you what matters a lot to me, and this is why I choose this knife. This is the Dull Strong Shogun Series chef's knife. What makes a big difference to me is this transition point right here and how your finger interacts with it. You can see between the Dull Strong and the Miyabi, there's a little bit more of a notch on the Miyabi that doesn't bother some people. But I love this smooth transition. And that's what made all the difference to me. Okay? Hands down. When I put this knife in my hand and I pinched it, it just felt perfect. So I fell in love immediately. It's like a guitar, man. When you grab a hold of it in that first strum, and you're like, oh, the angels sing. Same thing. Same thing. That's what you're looking for in a knife. One of the comments I make all the time is that any good knife makes you feel like a badass when you grab it. If you don't have that when you touch a knife, that's not the right knife for you. Now, understand, this may be the right knife for you as far as the brand and the style, and when you grab it, you feel great. And I do. It feels good. It's a very utilitarian knife. Victorinox makes a fantastic knife. Fantastic. Good German steel. They hold up forever. I've had most of my Vicks for 10 plus years. In fact, that was my first barbecue real knife set after I got some shuns stolen because I swore I would never go back and spend that much money and have a knife disappear out of my roll again. So, you know, I went I'm not going to say cheap. I went cheaper in price, but still great quality. Victorinox all day long, twice on Sunday is exactly that. It is a fantastic value for your buck. If you've only got $25, $30 to spend on the knife, Victorinox makes a great one, man. I can't deny that. If you got a few more bucks, the Doll Strong line, they have 3 different lines: Gladiator, Phantom, and Shogun. And they have something that'll fit your budget. And it's fantastic steel. Before I go, like, I think my Doll Strong video and why I like them is going to be a separate one. We're just going to talk about differences in knives in this one. And then I'll break that one into a whole different thing, because I've been using Doll Strong knives for about 2 years now, 1.5 years now. And I just love them. I love them. I recommend them all the time. I've probably helped them sell 200 to 300 knives just on recommendation. So because of that, I'll divide that into another video, and we'll talk about them explicitly, because I know more about their line than probably anything else that I have. Okay, so we'll do that. But for the sake of this video, let's talk about some differences in knives. So I'm going to set our Victorinox off here, and what I'm going to do, I want to lay out. Everyone asks me, what is one knife everyone should have? And let me try to get these all in frame here. And forgive me, like I said, I'm working several cameras here. So, what's one knife everyone should have? Chef's knife. Hands down, twice on Sunday. If you only have one knife, chef's knife, always. Okay? Well, what makes a good chef's knife? Well, start with the handle. As far as, I start with comfort. Let me start there, okay? Start with comfort. Not necessarily start with the handle. Start with what's comfortable to you, okay? The next question is, what style? You can see at the top, we kind of transition from, in fact, if I had to order them, it would be kind of like, more like this. From a very European knife up top. This is one I got on Kickstarter. It's made by Habitat. They used some interesting steel in it. I tell you what, it's a beautiful knife. It's got a good balance. The handle's beautiful. It feels good in my hand. But you know what? It's got a really sharp edge. Actually, let me pull it up here. So it's got a really sharp edge right here that either I need to grind down or something, but it just bothers me when I use it. So it just didn't make my favorite knife. It's a good steel. It's good everything else. I love the belly on the knife. I do love that about European style chef's knives. They have this deeper belly to them. So when you really, you've got that on your cutting board and you rock into something, you really you can roll that knife through and that belly will get through. I do love that about European knives. You'll notice on the Doll Strong Shogun, it has a bit of a belly. I really love it. And as you transition more into the Japanese style knives, notice this Miyabi is a great example. They're pointier. The chef's knives for the Asian knives or Japanese style knives are more pointy, have less belly. Okay, that's really the difference. And then you get some handle differences, and let's touch on those. A standard European chef's knife is going to have kind of a baseball bat handle. You see that? I mean, that's not a bad thing. If you're a big fat European guy or descendant guy like me, that meat paw, that bear claw, fits good on those, man. Feels good. But then you have what I call the quintessential Asian handle, and it's a D-shaped handle. You'll see this little groove right here. Okay? And what that does in the groove of your hand, that's where that, in your fingers, that's where that D shape goes, and it feels good. And man, they got a light flick to them. They're ninja fast, as my son says, and that's what I love about. They're lighter. The agility is higher. Typically, the spine on an Asian blade is going to be a little thinner as opposed to the Europeans. Although this is a bad example because this one has a pretty slim taper. Usually they'll have a pretty fat back on them that gives you a little more heft. The Doll Strongs have a little they're that hybrid between Asian and Euro, and I think that's why I like them so much. The handles on the Shoguns are pretty Euro, but the overall design is very Asian inspired. So it's like the sensibilities of a European knife with the usability for me of a Japanese knife, and I think that's why I fell in love with them, honestly. So again, it's all personal preference. Okay, so what makes good steel, dude? You want to see one of the biggest debated topics in all of the internet? Start talking about steel. Okay, it's debated more than hot and fast. It's debated more than fat side up. People go nuts over steel, and they have their favorites. So what are some good steels for kitchen knives? Now, let me preface this. I'm not a steel expert. I'm basing this solely on my experience with the knives that I bought. Okay, there's much more higher carbon knives. There's knives that are harder, that keep an edge for a long time, that are hard to put an edge on though. Knives that take one heck of an edge super easy, but they lose it a little faster. You gotta weigh all that. Okay. So some of the steels I really like. AUS 8. In fact, I know this Dahlstrong Phantom series is an AUS 8 knife. Takes an edge real quick, keeps it a fair amount of time. It's light, it's agile, it's hard enough, but not as hard as some others. Dahlstrong just released a new series called the Omega series. They're doing some interesting things. When that knife gets here, it's due to be delivered today. That's when we'll cover that a little more. And they're using things like nitrogen to harden the blades and all kinds of craziness. VG10, that's what most of the Shogun line has in it. It's a very good blade. Sometimes it can get beat up for corroding a little bit if you're not careful, keeping it clean and wiped down. But any high carbon knife that way, if you go buy a Bob Kramer knife, which is going to cost you, depending on the knife, $1,000 or more. In his lower end, $350, and I mean low end, $350. They're high carbon knives. They're beautiful. They're some of the best in the world, hands down. They're still going to rust if you don't take care of them. You got to wash them and dry them immediately. So VG10 keeps an edge for a long time. Superb edge retention, high Rockwell rating as far as its hardness. I really like VG10. There's it's like S30, S40V. There's a million different metals. I don't necessarily think there's one metal for all knives, because in my opinion, the metal I want in a knife like this because I need it to be flexible, and you'll see it's got some give to it. That's going to be a completely different metal a lot of times than what I'm going to want in this beast, right? I want this thing that I can break bones with it. I can break down a chicken. I can slice a brisket. That's a lot more than what I'm asking of this guy. Okay, so it's just much different metal for different jobs. So don't get caught up in that too much. Okay. So if I have to recommend one knife, it's always the chef's knife. Well, the next question is always, well, if you have a chef's knife, what else do you need then? Well, honestly, not a lot. I do think everyone needs a good boning knife. Another knife I really recommend is the Santoku. It's very Japanese in its shape. Notice it doesn't come as much to a point. It's got a nice belly. It's kind of in between that chef's knife, and Santoku is a very Japanese knife by its by its origin, frankly. So I have two great examples. As a matter of fact, I love this Dahlstrong Shogun Santoku. I actually like it better than my Miyabi, and the Miyabi was double the price. So it just shows it's not always what you pay, it's just what you like. You'll notice they're very similar in design, very similar in shape, but I just like the profile on this a little better. I like the handle on it a little better. Now, notice I've had these Miyabis for 4 years, and I ain't getting rid of them. I pay a lot of money for them. I still like them. But we're talking about the difference between, do I want to drive, in my mind, a Porsche or a Ferrari today, or a Lambo and a Ferrari, or whatever. They're both winners. They're both 100% winners. So don't get caught up in that too much. I just really like the transition in this blade from the bolsters down. So I like a chef's knife. I like a Santoku knife as well. You got to decide. You can use them interchangeably. You don't have to have both. I like to have both. I use my Santokus a lot for vegetables. Another knife you can use for vegetables is called the nigiri knife. Okay? Now it's like a little mini cleaver. Most nigiris have a thin spine. This one's a little thicker. Doll Strong made theirs a little heavier. And they're squared off like that. They're boxy. Okay? But what I love about them is when you want to do some real fine work, they have just this great ease about them because of the boxiness. I don't have to worry about accidentally poking myself or anything like that. And I love the wideness of the blade coming down my knuckles, okay? That's what it's built for, okay? Real fine mince on vegetables, real fine chop. It's a wider design, Japanese design. It's meant to come down your knuckles and not cut you, okay? That's the whole point. I love the nigiri. You want to compare it to, everyone's like, that's a mini cleaver. No, that's a cleaver. So, know what they're used for and why. Now, I wouldn't want to use, obviously this thing is so big, I wouldn't use it for vegetables, right? The nigiri is a smaller cleaver, basically. Notice how this kind of bows out. There's some design differences, but basically, your cleaver is a big breaking knife. It has heft. It's meant to blow through bones. It's meant to, take that chicken and, really kind of overhand whack that thing, man. Or flip it over, break a coconut. That's what cleavers are for. They're destruction instruments, not instruments of, precision. And that's okay, too. So, do you need either one of these in your collection? No, you don't. I just really like a nigiri knife. That's just my personal preference for vegetables. I really like to use it. So if I had to only pick 4 knives in your collection, so we've already identified a chef's knife and or a Santoku knife, a deboning knife, which could be in the form of a fillet knife or an actual deboning knife. The difference typically will be how much arch they have in the back. Fillet knives are very springy, so keep that in mind as well. I like the springiness. I still use this thing all the time. So let's talk about 2 others that I would recommend. You got to have, in my opinion, a good paring knife, okay? Now, what makes a good paring knife? To me, it can't be too big. It can't be too small. Most paring knives, to me, get lost in my hand, and I can't index them well. But what I love about the Doll Strong line, a good paring knife is meant to be choked up on, way up on your grip. Okay? And you're supposed to work, have whatever you're working on in your hand, like a potato, and be able to kind of make this motion, right? That's it. It's a small motion for small jobs, okay? I like the Doll Strong paring knives. I love them. I love the Shogun series again because it fits my big, meaty hands and feels great. I love that transition, that pinch, okay? Now, what is this contraption? This is called a bird's beak knife, okay? Again, it's made mostly for vegetables, same thing as a paring knife, but I'll tell you, I use this guy as a deboning knife a lot. That hook point, that bird's beak, we tore apart nearly a whole hog with just this knife at Memphis and May, and I'm dead serious. Its ability to reach in something and scrape out what you need, or tear apart a tendon, or get in and separate ribs is beautiful. This knife is not cheap, but this knife is worth it. So, paring knife and or bird's beak knife, I'd put them on par, but if I had to pick one over the other, I really like a good bird's beak knife. That's my recommendation. You do whatever you want. Last knife I think you need, if you're a barbecue guy, or you cook a ham occasionally, or a roast beef, I think you need a good slicing knife, okay? So chef's knife, paring knife, deboning knife, slicing knife, okay? That's all you really need. That's it, guys. You don't need, you don't necessarily have to have a bread knife. And I'll be honest, for my slicer, I use a bread knife all the time. I cut briskets with bread knives a ton. So don't get too caught up on that, okay? Here is two fine examples. This is the Doll Strong slicing knife. You can tell it's super long. It's got a rounded edge. You're not going to poke yourself. And it's just made, I mean, it's a beast. If you don't feel like you can just freaking like a ninja with this thing, man, you're missing out. It does a great job though, slicing, okay? Rounded edge, hyper sharp, super sharp. Crazy how thin this blade is and what it's meant to do. But it's only meant for slicing. It has one job. It's only meant for slicing finished cooked meat. Okay, that's it. Now, this guy, what is this thing? This is the Swashbuckler 2000. No, I'm joking. This is called a breaking knife. What's it used for? Why is it called that? It's used for breaking down large chunks of meat into smaller chunks of meat. I know. It's funny how simple some of the derivative names are from time to time, but that's what it really is used for. You would take, say, a large shoulder or quarter of an animal, and butchers would use this knife to break it down, or this shape, okay? I'll be honest with you, I use this as much to slice brisket as I do anything, and it's just cool as shit, okay? That's why I bought it. When I freaking had this thing, I freaking talk in a pirate voice, and I feel like I'm a badass. That's why I have this knife. And, okay, that's not just it. So, when I'm slicing certain things, notice there's a belly on this knife, okay? This is, to me, is where the action happens, from about here to here. When I'm pulling through a slice, I can roll through like this. I start drawing through and I roll up. Dude, this digs in. It will destroy whatever it's touching. I love that. I trim my ribs with this. I cut ribs with this when they're cooked. I cut brisket with this. I just really like that design. And I'll be honest, I use these two interchangeably. If I had to pick one between the two, I'm more a pirate. I just can't help it. This knife is just awesome. Victorinox makes one, but honestly, it's not a lot cheaper than what this one, the Doll Strong, was. So that's it. That is really my 4 recommendations for knives. If you don't know anything about knives, it's a good place to start, okay? Try to keep it super simple. Are there 1,000 other knives and 1,000 brands we can talk about? Yes, but this is just, if I were starting out, what are the 4 knives, or, if I didn't want to buy a big set, and I don't recommend sets, what would I recommend for you to buy? If you've got a budget of, say, $250, you can buy these 4 knives in a really high quality, and don't sleep on Doll Strong as a brand, because they run sales all the time. Yeah, don't get me wrong, this knife may cost you $50, but this knife's only going to cost you about $65, $70 on sale. Yeah, this one's going to cost you a little more, 100-something bucks. But, man, $100 for a knife to me is not out of bounds for a big knife that I'm going to use all the time. $200 to $300, now we're getting a little spendy. So that's just my personal preference. I'm not making fun of anyone if that's too expensive for you. If that is too expensive for you, hey man, Victorinox, Dexter Russell, all those guys, Mercer, they make a fantastic blade that just isn't as pretty. That's it, man. It's just built to be 100% utilitarian. It's a pickup truck versus a Ferrari. That's it. Still does the same job. Holds an edge like a beast. Can't beat it. It's good German steel. That's another debate. German steel versus Japanese steel. Give me good steel. I like them both. And they both have good steel. So I don't get too caught up in that. I don't care whether it's German or it's Japanese steel. That's just me. Okay? Find a brand that you like. Try a few out. Buy from a place that has a really good return policy. That's the other thing I like about Amazon. You can try out. I'm not saying try them out and send them back. But you know what? If I got this knife at home for $200 and I hated it and it just didn't feel right, I'd send that beast back. I really would. Because that's a lot of money. And you need to love that knife. And it's hard to be able to go try these knives in the store, right? I live in a place where I got to drive 2.5 hours to find a decent knife store. And they still don't have everything I want. Yeah, they're going to have some Wusthoffs and they're going to have, some Hinkles and this, that, and the other. But I can't go find everything I want in the store and try it. So I'm in the sticks. I order from Amazon and I take advantage of the return policy. That's why I'm a Prime member. If you're in the same situation, don't be afraid to do the same thing. But be willing to test, be willing to try. And just because Bob down the street likes Wusthof and Joe across the yard likes Shun, that's great. That's their opinion. They may not work for you. And keep in mind, in every one of those lines, every one of those brands have about 15 different lines. So be willing to try to sub lines in that brand to find the one that's right for you. You don't have to use the same thing Bob does. It's okay. Find something that 100% works for you, and you'll be fine. That's my advice all day long, twice on Sunday. Okay. That's how I got here. I wanted to try stuff that no one else had, no one else was talking about, and just find what worked for me. So that's my recommendations, guys. I'd love your feedback. I'd love your comments down below. If you got any more questions, and I know I didn't cover everything here, post them. I'll reply to them. I'll put links to all these knives in the comments, so feel free to hit those. I will say, if you do order any of these knives, I appreciate you ordering from the links below. It allows me to do things like, buy these knives and do reviews on them and do some testing and give you guys feedback, okay? As always, I'm Pitmaster Shane D. You can reach me at pitmaster@gorillagrills.com, Shane at drapersbarbecue.com, or at Shane D BBQ on just about all the social media, okay? So, if you got any questions, send them in. Love to hear from you. Support this channel. Please hit that little subscribe button right there, and right over there, that like button. I'd appreciate it. It helps me know that I'm providing you guys with information that's helping you. And that's the only reason I'm doing this. I like sitting down at my kitchen table with this crappy lighting on this color wall that I didn't pick out, that my wife really likes, that makes me look green and sick or whatever, and just have a conversation with you guys. That's what Pitmaster Shane D is all about as a channel. So that's it, guys. We'll see you next time.